Hi, and welcome to Running on Carbs podcast. This is Coach Val, and welcome to episode number 16 of the podcast. Happy to have you here today because we are going to talk about a couple of mistakes that runners sometimes make, not everybody, but very often. And we're all guilty of these 5 mistakes that happen in running. And I want to talk about them because it's so important to be aware, and these are some of the things that we work on in coaching also. But you don't have to have a coach to work on these 5 mistakes that happen. You can do these on your own if you have awareness around them. So, before we jump in, I want to remind you that we are in the middle of July. So, we are doing the July Apple Podcast review drawing. All you have to do is go over to Apple Podcast, rate the podcast with 5 stars, write a glowing review to help others find us. Because that is how the podcast grows. And that's how we're able to reach more women in their 40s who are running and staying active and enjoying a plant-based lifestyle, is by sharing the podcast and helping it grow on platforms like Apple Podcasts. So the way that you do that is through reviews, both written and stars. So I'm asking if you will please go write a review if you are enjoying the podcast and you're getting something out of it and it's unique and speaks to you. I would really appreciate that. And in a thank you for that, then I will enter you in a drawing every month. So anyone that writes a review in July will be entered into a drawing to win an 8-week training plan that I will customize to you. So you have a great shot. I'd really appreciate the reviews. And thank you in advance for helping the podcast out and helping us grow. Otherwise, you can always subscribe to the podcast. So the more subscribers that we have, if you don't feel like writing a review or you don't have time, hit the subscribe button because that also helps the podcast grow, and it helps Apple Podcasts know that people are listening and that they want to be notified when the podcast comes out every week. So hit the subscribe button, easiest way you can help the podcast grow, and also you'll be notified. So, every Thursday when you wake up in the morning, your new episode will be there and ready to be listened to. One other thing is that the Bashful Badass Virtual Run Club interest list is still open. So if that's something that is of interest to you and you want to join a virtual run club where we have actual live runs that we chit chat with each other on our runs on the weekend, just like you would in any other run club, except that you can run wherever you want in the world. And we meet up at the same time through the power of the internet and streaming service, and do our runs together. Keeps us in a nice conversational pace in zone 2, most likely, if you're having a conversation, chit chat about all sorts of things. And then we also do another Zoom call during the week where we'll talk about anything you're doing. So your plan, how it's going, do you have running questions? It's just like a group coaching call once a week. And we'll talk about nutrition, plant-based options and things, how it's going for you if you have challenges. So we talk about all sorts of things there. So anyway, the interest list is open for the first cohort of that. And just jump on that list, no obligation. I'll send you an email when I have more details on it. But if you do end up signing up, you lock in the founding member price for that. So you will always have that discount no matter how long you stay in the program. If you continue to take part, then you'll always have that same low price. Others won't come in at that low price. It only is for the first group of people who take part. So anyway, if that sounds of interest to you, just put your name on the email list and I'll notify you. No obligation or anything to actually sign up when it comes around. Just it'll allow you to get the information about it so you know if it's fits in your schedule and it's something you want to do. Okay, so let us jump into the episode today. And I'm just going to jump right in. So these are 5 mistakes that are sabotaging your runs if you are doing them. Number 1, skipping the dynamic warm up. That is hands down number one, I think, at the top of the list, no matter what. So if you are not warming up your muscles and your ligaments and your tendons with a stretching dynamic movement, then you're not going to be able to get the maximum power out of your run. And you may even lead to injury if you're not warming up properly. So, muscles that are cold don't like to move. So, they want to be warm and cozy and stay under the covers. But so you want to introduce the dynamic movement. And the idea of dynamic is that you are stretching with movement. So that means that if you're doing, for example, a leg swing, that's a great example of a dynamic warm-up move. So you're standing, holding onto a pole, a tree, a wall, whatever, and you're swinging your leg, forward and backward. So you get a bit of a stretch, at the height of the movement, and then you swing it back and you're getting a bit of a stretch in the front of the leg. And, but you're doing this all with movement. You're not overdoing it. You're not trying to be a rockette, and kick to the ceiling. You just want to get some blood flow through the body and into the legs and get them going in the right motion. So I like doing those in both the forward and back motion. And then I use a wall. So then I stand facing the wall. So the first one I'm standing sort of side, my shoulder to the wall. And then I face the wall and I do a lateral leg swing as well. So you go out and then forward across the body. Just moving the body in different directions with movement and stretch at the same time. So this is giving you both the stretch, blood flow, mobility, everything that you need. It warms everything up and just gets it ready for work. So doing these before run helps to reduce injury. And, we ladies who are running and really active in our 40s and 50s and beyond, men too, but certainly ladies, our bodies are built differently. And we need to make sure that they are prepared for the movement. We're more susceptible to things like stress fractures and other injuries. So we need to make sure that our bodies are really prepared for the movement and the impact that we're about to put it through on our runs. Also, women need to consider that as we age, we lose things like elastin and collagen. And elastin's main function is really to allow the tissues in the body to stretch and then to regain and shrink back to their original size. So if we're losing that as we age, then we really need to focus on making sure that we are introducing that stretch reaction before we go out and start pounding the pavement. Collagen also, that's a connective tissue, and that plays a vital role in things like muscle function and strength. And it's connecting all of our ligaments and things together. So it's in the muscle, it's all over. And, I think I was reading it was 1 to 10% of the muscle in the body. So collagen is really important, and I'm not going to get into supplementation and all of that, but just know that we're losing that as we age. So we need to be aware of that and just make sure that we're prepared for the work that we're asking our bodies to do by not skipping the dynamic warm-up. So what should you do? So I'm going to go through each one of these and what it is, and then we're going to talk about what should you do. So, of course, you should do a dynamic warm-up before every run. So the dynamic warm-up really doesn't have to be a long time. It can be as simple as 5 to 7 minutes-ish, to of just several exercises that are warming the body up, getting the blood flow going to every part of the body. And that includes upper body also, because, when you're running, you are using your upper body. So you want to make sure that you've got from head to toe, a little bit of dynamic movement. Some examples, so like upper body examples would be some arm swings, back and forth across the body. I think they're called ape swings, where you put your arms up and down. I love that one. So you just swing your arms sort of up over your head and then, let them drop and flop back. That feels so good to warm up. Do some torso twists because there is a lot of twisting movement in the torso, or control at least, of a twisting movement when you are running. So you want to make sure you're all warmed up. And a great stretch that I used to hate, and I think probably because I was not very good at it, is the world's greatest stretch. So you're in a runner's lunge, and you lift one arm as you stretch to one side, and then you switch to the other without moving your feet, but now you're twisting to the opposite direction. And I notice when I'm on the same arm and same leg, I always want to fall over. So it just takes a lot of balance and coordination. So, which is why I used to hate it. I used to do it in a yoga program. But anyway, it is a great move. And I notice whenever I do the world's greatest stretch before my runs, I always feel a lot better. Also, side lunges, warm up the quads, do some quad pulls, and scoops for your hamstrings. So, all sorts of good exercises to do to warm up. Okay, mistake number 2. We're moving right along. Number 2 is you don't activate major running muscles before you run. So, what do I mean by activate? This is different than the dynamic warm up. So, the dynamic warm up is to get the blood flowing and warming up everything to bring heat. And then you want to activate the muscles that you're going to be using primarily during your run. So what are the muscles that we're using primarily? Obviously, we're using lots of muscles when we run, but primarily we're looking at things like the glute maximus. So the big muscles in your butt. They're the ones that are powering your run and are really important to maintain stability. So not only the glute maximus, but also the glute medius, which is sort of kind of on the upper edge of the butt. That is very important for stability of the hips. So when we're running, the hips need to be stable, forward. They need to be even. So you're not getting what's called hip drop, which can lead to injury. So it's very important that these muscles are activated, turned on, and ready for your run. The next group of muscles I would say would be your calves and your soleus. And I can tell you, as a returning runner after my injury, the calves and the soleus have been my most difficult muscles to get back into shape to carry me through my runs. So the calves and soleus, you really want to focus on those because that's where your energy return is coming from. With every foot strike, your ankle has to stabilize the rest of your body going all the way up the kinetic chain. And if you don't have the muscles in your calves and soleus activated, they might wobble. You could lead to a twisted ankle or a tweaked knee, all sorts of fun stuff that you do not want. So you want to activate those muscles. The next group of muscles would be your core and rotation. So this helps you maintain good running posture and form. I want to avoid any anterior or posterior tilt of your hips because that could lead to back pain, hip pain. It could lead to hip flexor pain, all sorts of pain that we just don't need and don't want. So we want to activate the core and the rotation muscles as well so that they are nice and active and stable for your run. So what should you do? How do you activate these muscles? Activating glutes. I'm only going to give a couple of examples because we could be here all day. I probably could have done a whole podcast on this. So this is just a quick overview. Activating glutes. One exercise that I do every time before I go for a run, and I know that it has been proven in scientific studies and all sorts of fun stuff. Banded fire hydrants. So you do these in different ways. The way I've been doing them is hands and knees, but you can also do them standing if you want to incorporate a little more balance and calf work at the same time. You could sort of hit two birds with one stone with that. But the banded fire hydrant on all fours. So on your hands, on your knees, with a band around just above your knee. So just like at the low part of the quadricep, right above the knee. And you, like a dog, you lift your one leg out to the side, kind of back at an angle, keeping the foot flexed so that you really activate the glute. So you're activating the glute med and part of the glute max there, and you're holding it. So you hold it for 10 seconds and you really squeeze and feel that muscle turn on. And if you have weak glutes, you're going to notice that sometimes people are weaker on one side rather than the other. And so on one side, you might notice that you do this movement and you're holding it. And number one, you might fatigue faster on one side than the other. That's a good sign. That means that you are doing the right thing. I mean, it's not a good sign that you're weaker on one side than the other, but a lot of people are, so it's not uncommon. But it's good in that you're able to acknowledge that and see that, and then now you can do something about it. So these exercises will help you to create that balance. So if you're weaker on one side than the other, then these activation exercises are really what you need. So while you're doing it, you hold it up there for 10 seconds, and then you drop the leg back down, kind of rest for 3 seconds, and then do it again. In my activation series, I do 6 on each side. So I get a full total of a minute of activation on each side before I run. The next exercise are calves and soleus. Good old-fashioned single leg calf raise off of a step, hopefully. So if you have an exercise step or just a regular stair in your house, some sort of step where your heel can drop lower than your toes is ideal. And just doing your single leg calf raise on that step. You want to do that with a straight leg, and then you want to do that with a bent knee also to get the soleus. And this is one of those that you can sort of, if you do just a minor adjustment of where your body is on that step and where the weight is distributed over the foot, you'll feel it in different parts of the calf. So you really want to make sure that you are in a position where you're feeling it. So if you're doing a straight leg calf raise, you're probably going to feel that in the biggest part of your calf, in the main area of the gastrocnemius. And then if you are doing the bent leg, you can feel that in different places. It's so funny. I was doing this exercise. I was talking with my acupuncturist about this exercise recently, and we were doing the stretches. And she did the same exercise. We're both standing there like against the wall, and she's doing the exercise, and she keeps her butt tucked under. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I feel that in my, soleus." And then I did the same movement as her, and I'm like, "I don't feel anything." So I kind of pushed my butt out a little bit, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, now I feel it in my soleus." So you kind of got to move the body to where you feel it in the right place. And everybody's body is a little bit different and structured a little differently. So you kind of want to just move with the movement so that you feel it where you're supposed to feel it. Okay, the next one is core and rotation. Good old-fashioned plank. I mean, these aren't hard exercises. Obviously, there's a lot more, but here's some basic ones that you can do easily before your next run. So good old-fashioned plank. I like the low plank, so on your elbows and your forearms, and hold for a minute. That's a nice activation. You want to make sure that you're really tucking those hips under you and forward, like headlights. Like you really want to push your hips forward toward, I don't want to say toward the ground, because you want to make sure that you are in a straight line, but you want to activate the core is what you're doing here. Remember, these are activation exercises. So you're really crunching the core while you're doing this, and tilting those hips forward so that you can feel it in your abs and your core. Another one is another plank series, and it's the over under side plank. And if you're familiar with yoga, you probably already know what this one is. So you're in a plank, same sort of position. Um, you can do this on your elbows or on your hands, whichever plank style you prefer. But you go into um, a side plank with the raised arm, and then when you come back into the forward position, the down position of the plank, you reach your arm through, like you're threading the needle through to the other side, and you just kind of hold for a couple seconds, and then you go back up and do that, maybe 6 times on each side, just to get the body activated. In the core muscles with some rotation and core stability. So there are a couple of activation exercises for that one. All right, let's move on to number 3. So number 3 mistake is failing to hydrate before, during, and after a run. And right now I'm recording this in the middle of summer, and the heat is real. I was out on a run this weekend myself, and I looked at my phone for the temperature, and it was full sun, and it said it was 71 degrees, but in the full sun, it was a lot warmer. But full sun, 71 degrees and running, that's warm. I was sweating bullets. It was a warm run. And I had brought with me electrolytes though. So I was good on my nutrition and my run, my hydration. I had hydrated a lot before I left the house. And then of course I continued to hydrate for the rest of the day. But hydration doesn't just start before you walk out the door. Hydration is continuous. So you have to hydrate every single day. 40 to 60% of athletes may actually be underhydrated at the start of a run. 40 to 60%, that's a lot. That means a lot of people are not hydrating on a regular basis, is what that tells me. Also, exercise in performance itself is impaired when an individual is dehydrated as little as 2% of their body weight. So it doesn't sound like very much. 2% of your body weight dehydration, and all of a sudden you're losing performance quality. Losses that are in excess of 5%, so only 3% more, can decrease the capacity for work by 30%. So if you are well hydrated and you're out there running, then you are at your top. If you lose 5% of your body weight through dehydration, you're going to lose 30% of the benefits and the performance that you had from that other run. And that's significant. So hydration is really important for a number of reasons, but if we're just looking at performance alone, there's a good reason right there. Post-run hydration should also include replacing any of the electrolytes that you lost along the way, and also help cellular uptake of that hydration. So the cells need help bringing in that water, and the way that they do that is through things like sodium and other electrolytes that come through food and that come through adding electrolytes to our water. So that could be maybe the pink Himalayan salt that has minerals and sodium, along with maybe some lemon juice. You could make a simple electrolyte drink that way, like a homemade one. That's going to be better than just drinking plain water. But then if you are looking for performance and other things, then you may want to include a, over the counter, off the shelf kind of electrolyte drink. And there's lots of them out there. So just pick the one that you like the flavor of and that has a good mix. And there's all sorts of calculators that you can use too. You can go through the sweat rate calculators and calculate your sodium loss and go through all that. Or you could also just go by feel and make sure that you are hydrated, that you are, peeing properly, and that you don't have dark urine. There's all sorts of other ways. And actually, I was reading as I was researching this podcast today, one of the articles I came across was saying that most athletes just use the color of their urine to determine whether or not they're properly hydrating or not. That's sort of just a layman's way to do it. If you don't have other concerns or health concerns, that might be a good place to start. And then, of course, you can always go deeper if you want to or need to. Okay, so what should you do? Hydrate regularly and often. Simple. Well, the solution is always simple, right? When we hear it, it's the implementation is where we run into challenges. So, hydrating again is a daily activity. So, this is one of those where you want to incorporate your lifestyle hacks, if you will. If you like doing lifestyle hacks, this is one to do. So make sure that you're hydrating every day. Write it down, calculate it, make sure that you are tracking it, and that you really are getting the hydration that you think you are. Add more water and maybe some electrolytes in the summertime. So when it gets hot, you want to increase your fluid intake because everyday activities are going to drain you and take more out of you. So during the summertime, you might need to increase your hydration even more than you do other parts of the year. Bring electrolytes and fluids on your runs. Don't be a hero. It's not a hero to say, oh, I went out on my 12-mile run and I didn't drink anything. I don't think that's a hero. I think that's stupid. But this is my opinion, but it's my podcast, so I can have that opinion. I think it's dangerous also. So I remember running past a kid. He was like a teenager, maybe part of a running group or something for the high school one time, and it was really hot, and it was again full sun, really hot, and he was stopped on the side of the trail and just kind of bent over and just looking miserable. And I asked him if he was okay because he didn't have any water with him. He had nothing. He's just out there running in, shorts and a t-shirt in this miserable weather. And I think he even had cotton t-shirt on. And I'm like, this poor kid, he's just, and there was no, we weren't close to the area where you can like get out of the trail and, go off to get some water. We were nowhere near anything like that. And I asked him if he was all right. And he said, yeah, I've got, my team. So anyway, I started running because he said he was okay. There's only so much you can do. And as I was running off, I saw, a couple of his teammates come up and, ask him if he was all right. They didn't have any water either. I'm like, teenagers, come on, teenagers, think. So anyway, take water and fluids on your runs. Don't be a teenager. You are too old for that. You are too smart for that. You've come too far in your life to do things like that. And remember that longer runs, hot, humid days, those are going to require more hydration than other days that maybe you get out and beat the heat, and maybe you get out and there's still nice, beautiful overcast or something. You might need a little less hydration on that run than you would if you were running in full sun, but you still need hydration. So take that with you on those longer runs. All right. So that was what you should do. So, okay, so number 4, we're on number 4. Running too fast and too hard on every run. Now, I know I'm on this podcast, I'm talking to a lot of ladies, and I find this a little less, I have to say. So it's going to sound a little sexist, but again, it's my podcast. But I noticed that ladies are a little less prone to this one, but not immune. So, but I do have challenges with some of the men that I know that run, I have to say. So if you're one of those guys out there, I'm curious, are you, are you one of those that does this? Are you running too fast and too hard on every single run? All right. So using the same energy system. So when you are running really hard every single time you go for a run and you're panting, exhausted at the end or all the way through it and at the end, then you are using the same energy system every single time you run. And that's over and over and over again, high stress on your body and your energy systems. So if you are out there panting and running at, top speed every time, you're not able to build, or I should say that your body isn't able to keep up and build the endurance that it needs to support you in longer runs. So oftentimes what you hear are people saying, an outcome of this type of activity is people will say, I've been running for X number of months or whatever, and I'm not getting any faster. Or I'm running for X number of months and I'm still tired and I can't go any farther. Or I've maxed out at X number of miles and I can't seem to get past that plateau. And this is often the culprit for that. Not always, but a lot of times this is the culprit. Running, too fast, all of your runs are done at the same high energy system and your body doesn't have the time and capability to build up all the extra mitochondria that are necessary to fuel the body and to create energy systems that will get you past that hump. So you need to run slower in order to do that. And the cardiovascular system, it takes time to develop. So you can't rush it. I wish we could, because I'm one of those people that's very impatient. So when I make a decision or I want to do something or I want something to happen, I want it like yesterday. And so I'm right there with you. I get it. But this is one of those things you just simply can't rush. You can't rush healing and you can't rush the body through through the cardiovascular system or your muscles and tendons and things like that. You can't rush those things. They just are on their own time and you have to work with them, whatever it is that they want. The body gets to decide. Our brain gets to go along for the ride. So what you do today is not going to show up in your runs for another 2 weeks. So if you're running all your nice, easy runs now, then in 2 weeks, your body will start to get the hang of it and realize, oh, that's what we've built. So by then, in 2 weeks, that's when you see the payoff. That's why if you want to do, let's say, a half marathon or a marathon, and you decide a month out that you're gonna, or we'll give it 2 months even. It's okay, 2 months out. You decide that you want to do this, but you've never run that distance in your life, or maybe you've run the distance, but it's been a long time, and you want to get back to that endurance. You're not going to be able to build that in 2 months unless you've been building it over time already. So, forcing your body into that predicament just oftentimes leads to injury, disappointment, frustration, because it's your body can't go on fast forward. It just doesn't understand it. Doesn't work that way. Um, these are the miles that are often called junk miles. So when you are running outside of an energy system, um, and you're just doing it all the time with no rhyme or reason, it's just, oh, I'm running, so I'm exhausted. That's what you do when you run. Then there's really no purpose to the miles, physiologically speaking. You might enjoy it. It might feel like you got a good workout. Sometimes there's a mental benefit to it. But physiologically, it doesn't really do any good. So you're not building mitochondria, you're not building speed because you don't have the endurance, your cardiovascular system wasn't prepared, so it's just overtaxed and you're just tired. I mean, it's kind of pointless, except for, like I said, maybe you were frustrated and you need to just go for a run. But that's not my point here. My point is doing this all the time, constantly doing your runs at these faster paces and constantly exhausting yourself. You might like it, but it's not going to help you in the long run achieve any particular running goals. So you really got to know, what do you want to get out of your running? And I'm guessing if you're listening to a podcast like this, you're trying to accomplish some sort of goals from your running and not just go out there and exhaust yourself. So, if your goal is not to simply exhaust yourself, then here are some things that you can do to skip past this mistake. Number one, slow down and ease up. So go on a little, change gears. There you go. Let's just change gears. One of the ways you can do that is to learn by you or to run using RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion. I really like using this mechanism to calculate internally how do I feel, and you can do this with or without a running watch. Um, when you're running using an RPE scale, you're deciding for yourself, how do I feel? And there's a couple different ways you can check in with your body. Number one, you can see, can I talk? So when runners go by, are you saying good morning? Are you saying, have a great run? Are you talking to them at all? If you're running with a friend, can you talk with them and have any type of conversation? Now, it doesn't mean that you're just going to like leisurely have this big long conversation like we are right now, and I'm talking and talking for the last 30 minutes. um, you might need to take more breaths because if you're running outside, you're going to have different terrain, you're going to go up and down. Um, but the idea is that you can actually carry on a conversation with someone while you're running. And, if you're a new runner, this can be a little harder to do because in the beginning, you're building that cardiovascular system, you're building that respiratory system to support your running. So you might need to take more walking breaks in order to stay in that conversational RPE 4 zone. It's also called zone 2 running. It gets a little confusing because it depends on which scale you're using. But RPE is really about the rate of perceived exertion. So you're rating yourself on how tired are you, or how good do you feel. Um, so 80% roughly of your runs, if you are an intermediate or a more experienced runner, 80% of your runs should really be easy pace runs. And the other 20% of your runs can be at faster paces or have more specific workouts to them. So, like your long runs are going to be a little different than your easy everyday runs. There's tempo runs, threshold runs, which are really similar, interval runs, hill repeats, all sorts of other runs that you can be doing that fill up that 20% harder effort. But 80% should really be a little easier. And if you are a new runner, then I would say 100% should be at your easy run pace and an exertion level, because you're building, like we talked about earlier, you're building the body systems. So the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, the muscular system, the bones and tendons, and all of that. You really need to allow your body to settle in to the high impact activity if you're a new runner, because I can tell you that shin splints are really awful, and you can do a lot of damage with something as simple as shin splints. And I mean, I know when I was a kid in school, I used to get shin splints all the time. Um, and so, knowing that now as an adult, um, my body's a little more susceptible in that area. So I really need to be cautious if I get, shin pain or calf pain, and make sure that I'm taking care of that. So, and you have to give your body whatever time it wants to adapt to the activity that you're doing. Also, running consistently. So, remember that example I gave you about the marathoner who wants to go out and run a marathon in 2 months, who's never run a marathon before, or hasn't in a long time? So, running consistently is a great way to simply combat that. Run throughout the year. You don't have to run every single week, but keeping that as part of your regular activity level is going to keep your body in that type of not only shaped like physically, but keep it in that performance shape to be able to run and to not run into the niggles and minor injuries that you run into if you just stop and start. So, I mean, and I say that they're minor, but boy, if you're going to go from couch to marathon, you could end up with a major injury in that case. So let's just stop the stop and start training mentality altogether. Um, all right. Number 5, last tip, last mistake, skipping your recovery activities. Okay, ladies, we are not 25. Most of us, at least I'm not. I'm pushing double that. And skipping recovery activities is just like a recipe for disaster. Oh. So when you finish a run, you don't just stop. You don't just stop and go, okay, I'm done. Walk in the house, grab a snack, take a shower. No, you got to bring the body back to homeostasis. You got to cool down and ease yourself back to where you were when you started. So at that dynamic warm up. So we want to go full circle back from dynamic warm up all the way through your run and then back to dynamic cool down, if you want to call it that. If you don't do this, it will very easily lead to injury when muscles and ligaments are just left to just swell and, tighten up. So after a run, especially again, newer runner, but you don't have to be a new runner to experience these things. You're an experienced runner. Go out there, do your 10 miles, and then just stop and tell me how you feel. Most of us in our 40s, 50s plus are going to feel pretty bad. Our, feet are going to swell up. Our hands are going to swell up. Everything's going to like poof. And we're just going to like turn into a big, oh, I can't remember her name on that. I can't remember anything right now. The movie where she like blows up like a blueberry. Willy Wonka. Thank you. Okay. Willy Wonka. Where she just blows up like a blueberry. Sometimes I feel like that after a run, if I don't get to my, cool down fast enough. Or even if I do, sometimes my calves feel like that. So all those waste products. So what that is all the waste products that have built up in the muscle during our run are in the muscle still. So we've got to cool down by flushing them out. So make sure that all of that waste product and byproduct gets out of the muscle so that you can return back to homeostasis without the swelling, without the inflammation, and also reduce DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, that ickiness afterward. So who likes that? Nobody likes DOMS. That just leads to discomfort and, not being able to sit up or stand up out of a chair without like looking like an old lady. So nobody likes that. And recovery happens outside the run. So the run is the run. And then after that, now we have to recover. And recovery can look like a number of things. It could be, well, let's say poor recovery, because we're still on the mistakes. So one of the mistakes for poor recovery is skipping nutrition. So not fueling during the run if it's a longer run, or not fueling after the run, no matter what the distance, but just not having proper fueling and skipping your nutrition, skipping your physical therapy. If you have physical therapy exercises you're supposed to be doing, make sure you do them. And the ancillary exercises that are supportive of your stabilizer muscles or your smaller muscles, make sure that you're doing those exercises. So for me, that's like my mobile board, making sure that I do that, once or twice a day, every day, to build my foot and ankle stability and strength. And then also ignoring any of those niggles and thinking that rest is always the answer. Rest is sometimes the answer, but most of the time, rest is not the answer. The answer is in active recovery. So that could be stretching, that could be strengthening, that could be mobility, that could be a lot of different things. It might be infrared heating pad. It could be a foam roller. It's active recovery. Rest is most of the time not the answer, unless you have acute pain. Acute pain, rest, and maybe even medical provider at that point. But otherwise, there's a lot of self care that you can do to get past these niggles. Don't just ignore them, because oftentimes they last a lot longer. And then now you're losing fitness if you're just kind of sitting on the couch going, oh, my, ankle hurts and it's, kind of stiff. Well, what else can you do for the ankle? I mean, if it's not pain and you didn't twist it and it's not sprained or strained, it's just kind of stiff, there's lots of things you can do for that. So, realizing that sometimes rest is not the answer. But what should you do? So here's what you should do. Number 1, never skip recovery. And recovery is ongoing. Recovery is not only right immediately after the run. It is anytime you are not actively exercising. You are in recovery mode of some kind. So always cool down after the run. A walk after the run is a great way to cool down and to bring that body back to homeostasis, to start with. If muscles are tight, now is the time to stretch them. Don't stretch them before. We're going to do the dynamic stretch then, but there's no need to overstretch. So runners don't need to be super hyper flexible. As a matter of fact, that could lead to injury in and of itself. But, like a 30-second stretch on your calf or 30-second stretch on your quadricep, those are going to make you feel good. Do a couple sets if you feel like you need a little extra besides just 30 seconds. Do one set of 30 seconds and then kind of rest, shake it out, do another set, just enough to again get that blood flowing, get that little stretch and loosen up any tightness that might have developed. If you have stiffness or pain, not acute pain, remember, then you can address it with things like massage, foam rolling, maybe some natural muscle creams. I have a hemp cream that I really enjoy that has peppermint in it also. Infrared heat. I love my infrared heating pad. It's glorious and it does so much good for me. I also use acupuncture and chiropractic care on a regular basis for maintenance, and also just to kind of get rid of anything that's stiff and tight. Like right now, my spine between my shoulder blades, just under my neck, is really pinching, because I've been doing a lot of work on my phone, looking down, and it's just tightened up, and I'm working on trying to get rid of that. So I'll see my chiropractor and my acupuncturist, and I'll bet you it'll be gone once I go see them. Things like that. And then last but never least is sleep. You have to get enough sleep, and I know it's hard. Oh my gosh, I know. Ladies who are listening to this podcast, a lot of us are in our 40s, 50s plus, so maybe in your 30s. And there could be a lot of other people that are listening, but primarily those are the women that I'm talking to here. And it's hard sometimes to sleep because of maybe perimenopause symptoms, menopause symptoms, night sweats, and difficulty sleeping, insomnia, all sorts of hormonal things that can get in the way, and just interrupt our sleep. So I know sleep can be difficult, but if you can catch a nap at some point, that's awesome. But really try to get a full night's sleep, uninterrupted if possible. And I know women throughout our lives, it's like we can't catch a break, can we? Because when you're younger, you've got little children oftentimes, and a lot of us have families and babies and little kids, and kids that wander in even when they're 5, 6, 7 years old, and they're like, I had a nightmare, I need some water, whatever it is. And your sleep is always interrupted because they never ask dad. They always ask mom. So I know it's like we just can't catch a break. And then, the kids grow up and they go out of the house. You're an empty nester and you think you'll finally get some sleep. And then you're in perimenopause or menopause. Like, oh, great. Next on the list. So I digress. Um, Try to get enough sleep. Sleep is really important. So, making sure that you set the tone for sleep, a nice cool room, um, dark room. I have removed all of the televisions and radios and electronics from my room. The last thing that I haven't gotten rid of is my cell phone, but I will turn it over because I use it. I use the nighttime, uh, what are they called? It's like a frequency music, that I listen to help sleep. Um, so I use that on my phone. It's on YouTube, and so I don't have my phone in another room because I'm using it to listen to this. So I have to have some sort of electronic device to listen to that. But everything else is off, and there's no other frequencies or anything in the room. And, it has really, really helped with my sleep, at least, removing everything. And if you have a way to remove all electronics and even your phone, you might find that you actually sleep even better, um, with that. So, anyway, anything you can do to just introduce a nice, quiet, peaceful environment, free of distractions and light and sound, to help you get the best sleep possible, will help you in your recovery. So, all right. So there's our 5 mistakes and tips, because I never leave you hanging, right? I'm always going to give you tips on how to correct the things that we're talking about and try to help you improve your runs, your performance, and, whatever I can do to help. That's what I'm here for. So I'm Coach Val, and I'm here to coach and to help you along. If there's ever a time that I can be of service to you, jump on Instagram. I'm there. I also have a page on Facebook. I'm also all of these podcasts are on YouTube as well. So I'm really available. If you ever want to reach out and chat about your situation and what you're going through, I love to talk to people, to listeners, to find out how these podcasts are helping you. And if you have questions, or just your thoughts and opinions, I love to hear that. So please jump over on any of those socials and chat with me, and let me know, how this is landing for you and what you've taken away from the podcast, and maybe share some of your own tips. I'd love to hear them. If I could ever be of service to you and help you, through your running, maybe you're realizing, hey, I'm making some of these mistakes and I don't really know how to get out of that habit or break them, or I want some more guidance and help, then reach out to me. I offer one-on-one coaching, services, so we can chat about what you might need help with, and put together a plan specifically for you in one-on-one coaching. So, anyway, have a fantastic day. And don't forget to reach out to me, and don't forget to write that review on Apple Podcasts so that we can share this information with other ladies who could use it. And in the meantime, make sure you run your best life on carbs. I'm Coach Val. This is Running on Carbs podcast, and I will see you next time.